Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns, start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. If motivation actually worked the way that we imagine it does, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast because you'd just be thriving in every aspect of your life. You would be waking up ready at 5 a.m. You'd be doing the hard things. You would naturally be choosing long-term reward over short-term hits. But that's not the way that it happens. We wake up and pick up the phone and just immediately start scrolling, or at least I know I'm guilty of that habit. You're tense before your feet even hit the floor, and you are going to work for a boss that you can't stand. You're rehearsing a conversation with your Karen adjacent neighbor who always has something nasty to say. You skip the gym again. Instead, you go to Starbucks on your way in and get a coffee that has half day's worth of sugar into your system before 9 a.m. And by the time that you sit down at your desk, you feel stuck or heavy and maybe even behind in life. And some people may look at that as a feeling of failure, like it proves that they're lazy or undisciplined, unmotivated, or that they are built with a moving part that everyone else seems to have. And it's not about character, it's about your biology and reward mechanics. It's the way that your nervous system allocates energy and effort and focus. So today I'm talking about dopamine, not an Instagram pleasure molecule version or a TikTok takeaway, and also not a sterile lab lecture. I am going to talk about how it shows up in human life with craving, repetition, compulsion, avoidance, burnout, relapse, procrastinating, boredom, and it is the loop where you want something you don't even enjoy anymore, but you can't stop doing it. All of that is dopamine. And before I go further, I want to make sure that I'm very clear that this is not an addiction-related episode. Well, there's going to be some addiction tie-ins, but if you don't have addictions, don't rule this out. Addiction lives on the extreme end of the spectrum, yes, but we are talking about the circuitry that exists for everybody all the time. It's in the way that you chase validation that you don't actually want. It's why you overthink simple decisions, why you feel electric on a Monday and then out of gas on Wednesday. It's why we binge on things that we don't like, avoid the things that we care about, and we repeat patterns that we promised we were done with. So, addiction is just the loud, obvious version of this wiring, but for a lot of people, they are living within the realm of a socially acceptable version of this, and so we don't call that addiction, but it is the same mechanics. This episode is about that system and the engine that's underneath that kind of behavior. The part that decides what feels doable for you, what feels like it would be impossible, and what feels like relief. Once you understand how the system works, the whole system may start to make more sense. A book that I read a couple of years ago, The Molecule of More, explains how dopamine drives human behavior and our constant desire for novelty, success, love, political and creative pursuits, and also how this can be part of the roots of addiction. And in this, the authors explain that dopamine isn't about pleasure. as much as we all think that that's what it is. It's about pursuit. Dopamine is the chemical that makes you lean towards something, whether that's mental, emotional, physical. It's the spark that says, let's go, even when you don't consciously know why you are going. It's not that you crave the thing, you're actually craving the anticipation of the thing. So that is the reason why you can want another piece of pizza when you feel physically sick. It's why you might want somebody who is terrible for you and for your nervous system, and why you keep opening the same toxic apps over and over again, even though you're bored with them. Dopamine isn't asking, do you like this? It's asking, should we pursue this again? And the brain answers based on patterns, not always by logic. This is why even the most intelligent and driven people can become addicted. It's why disciplined people procrastinate, and why successful people might feel empty even after they hit a major milestone, because it doesn't care about intention or values. It cares about repetition, anticipation, and survival history. Inside the brain, you have two functional areas that are part of motivation. The VTA nucleus accumbens circuit, which is your car's gas pedal, and your prefrontal cortex, which is your brake. When dopamine fires, you hit the gas pedal full throttle, and when the prefrontal cortex is online, it regulates the gas. Here's the problem. Most people live in one of two states. The first is an overactive gas pedal, which is where they are chasing novelty, stimulation, or intensity. Can't sit still, always on to the next thing, can't enjoy what they have. It may look like they are high functioning, but actually internally it's frantic. The second is an overactive brake, which is your freeze mode. That may be that you want to do things, but nothing seems to spark you. You can see the steps, you know what you're supposed to do, but you just can't get the momentum to get it going, and everything feels heavier than it should. Most people bounce between the two and think that it is a character issue when it's literally their neurochemistry and conditioning. Let's talk about a nearly universal human experience, the loop where you keep going after something even though the payoff is gone. This could be food, could be your phone, your toxic ex, it could be your work, it could be drugs or alcohol, it might be porn or approval or chaos. The brain doesn't pursue pleasure, it is pursuing relief from the craving that pleasure used to give you. That is the sick joke about dopamine, is that craving grows even when pleasure shrinks. Imagine a seesaw. On one side, dopamine spikes. On the other side, the pain or the dopamine dip follows. So the more you spike, the deeper the dip. And the deeper the dip, the more you crave the next spike. This is why people binge until they are miserable. It's why they relapse even though things are going well, and why you cycle through relationships where you're looking for the same high that you used to get in the beginning. It's not about chasing pleasure, it's about chasing temporary relief that the pleasure used to give you before your system got desensitized. This means that it's not about a lack of motivation, it is a lack of a stable dopamine baseline, that homeostasis middle ground. Your baseline is the level of dopamine firing when nothing special is going on. So I use this example that when I was in active addiction, I would drop in on my mom on the midnight shift. And here's this 70-year-old woman just sitting in her den doing a jigsaw puzzle at midnight, and my reward system in my brain was just so fried that I looked at her and I thought, like, this is fun for you or this is satisfying for you. Like, I can't imagine my life being so boring. I also encountered this when I was in treatment. I had a roommate that was reading this book on John Adams, like a 600-page book. And I remember thinking on a Saturday night, watching him read that, eating his oat bran cereal, and I thought, if this is what my sober life is going to look like, there's no way that it's going to be sustainable. Fast forward, maybe it's because I'm in my 40s, but I can tell you that right now I love just calmly sitting somewhere and reading a book, watching squirrels and birds eat at the feeders, and I very much have become that 70-year-old doing the puzzle or reading the book. And part of that is the dopamine system going back to a normal baseline. So, but if your baseline feels low, the world can feel really flat and dull. So, what are things that drop the baseline? It's probably the stuff that you're doing all the time. Constant micro dopamine all day, hopping on the dating apps and getting matches, too much novelty, overstimulation, chronic stress, porn, sleep disruption, binge eating, compulsive scrolling for 12 hours of screen time a day, and that always on brain. Trauma and emotional unpredictability. And when baseline drops, motivation disappears, not because you're broken, but because the chemistry is wrong. And so people then try to fix this low baseline with more spikes, right? More compulsive shopping, more validation, more sex, more working out, more chaos, more caffeine. And all that does is kick that seesaw up and down more and more. The hole of your dopamine just gets deeper and deeper. Motivation comes back when things are back to baseline, not when you keep tacking on new goals or throwing more things into the endless abyss. People who have trauma, and I mean any emotional wounds, not just the dramatic stuff. People tend to think that trauma means that you've served in war somewhere or that you had physical abuse in childhood, and this is a much wider description than what exists in the DSM. People with wounds like this learn that the world is unpredictable, and unpredictability is dopamine's favorite food. So if you grew up in chaos, then you will probably crave intensity because intensity feels familiar. This is why calm might feel unsafe or flat or boring. The system is used to confusing anxiety with excitement. I've written a couple of articles. I'll probably record a podcast about this. Is also why you may chase relationships that are destabilizing for you, and why you might seek big feelings because that flat feels intolerable, like it did for me in treatment, watching this 70-year-old guy read this book. And it creates a pattern where you feel empty, so you want intensity. Then you get intensity and you feel alive, and then you crash, and then you need a new spike. You can live for decades in this loop and think that that's your personality, but it's not. It's a dopamine system that's calibrated to unpredictability, not safety. So when these people are in stable environments or stable relationships, they may feel bored or disconnected, or they feel like they love someone, but they're not in love with someone. That's a whole nother topic too. But I think often what they mean and they're not aware of is My nervous system doesn't know what to do without chaos and pursuit. And when the chaos is removed, the baseline drops, which makes stability feel uncomfortable or flat. But the discomfort is not danger, it's a recalibrated dopamine reward system. Let's talk about the part that pisses people off the most. The harder you chase a spike, the harder it is to enjoy that experience itself. Because dopamine is not a here and now molecule, it is the molecule of what is next. So think about your favorite food. Let's use pizza because I am a recovering pizza addict. I don't know about you, but I don't savor the first bite. Think Labrador. I inhale it, and I'm already thinking about the second slice before I've finished chewing the first, and that is dopamine. Serotonin, however, is the here and now chemical, which makes food more satisfying. Oxytocin makes connection satisfying, but dopamine does none of that. Dopamine makes you chase, which is why the more that you rely on dopamine-heavy coping, the less capacity you have for calm, joy, presence, contentment, and connection. This is why overstimulated people say that they cannot sit still with themselves. Their dopamine system is running the show without letting here and now chemistry even catch up. In order to rebuild satisfaction, you have to stop flooding the system long enough for the presence to actually wake up again. This is also present in procrastination. So let's look at one type of procrastinator, the people who only can do something under extreme pressure with a deadline and panic, and the cost of not acting creating some sort of pain. These folks are basically self-administering adrenaline as motivation, and they can't move until the threat is higher than the discomfort of starting. Not a personality flaw, it's nervous system wiring saying, I need a surge before we actually go. Type 2 is a dopamine deficit, the ones who can't move because nothing feels rewarding and any task just feels pointless before the system starts. Their dopamine baseline is just so low that the cost of starting something outweighs any imagined payoff. It's not that they're unmotivated, it's that they are chemically under-resourced. Both types look identical on the outside, like delay, frustration, shame, or overwhelm, but the internal mechanics are different. And once you know which one you are, then you can stop trying strategies that don't work. I'd like to move into the peak and crash cycle. That's the reason why big achievements can feel empty. And I wrote about this a few weeks ago of my endless milestones and thinking that I'll be content when I have the master's degree, when I get out of community mental health, when I make $100,000 a year in private practice, when I'm independently licensed and no one can tell me what to do. All those things. And the goalpost just keeps endlessly moving. So think about, what is your thing that you're pursuing? Degree, a promotion, six-pack, creative win. Notice that sometimes when you get those things, instead of feeling pride, you may feel a drop or a weird emptiness or a what now feeling. I can think so many times in grad school, all these endless nights staying up, reading and doing homework assignments, how excited I was to to hold that diploma, my master's degree. And when it finally came, I was just kind of like, I was really expecting this to feel different. And the reason why is because dopamine spikes for anticipation, not achievement. So when the thing finally happens, the dopamine falls hard and fast, and then the brain interprets that drop as something wrong. This is why a lot of people can self-sabotage at that point, not consciously, but because they think that the low means maybe it was the wrong career, or this wasn't worth it, or I'm empty inside, or I'm not cut out for this. In reality, that is just your dopamine system resetting back to baseline. The bigger the spike, the bigger the crash. So, understanding this can help you prevent unnecessary detours. Nothing in the brain is stronger than a combination of that dopamine spike, the dopamine dip, and then seeking relief when you are repeating the behavior. That loop is self-reinforcing, and it can look like scrolling, eating, sex, toxic relationships, overwork, overexercise, drugs and alcohol, external validation, and even conflict. The brain can't distinguish good or bad. It distinguishes predictable relief or uncertain relief. Once the brain learns a pattern that gives even a drop of relief, it holds on to that like do this again survival strategy. It's not a pleasure behavior, it's survival. And that is why people return to patterns that they hate, and why there is just no logic in this craving, and also why they have shame. When I was in treatment, I watched Dr. Kevin McCulley's documentary, Pleasure Unwoven, and personally, I found so much freedom in that because it explained why. It explained the neurochemistry in the brain, and it does it in a way that's like understandable with little hokey, spaghetti western clips that make it quite memorable. Actually, I had the good fortune of meeting him several years after I got sober, and I told him this documentary is kind of cheesy, even though it's really good. And he said it was cheesy for a reason so that people wouldn't forget it. And if you have any interest, I certainly would recommend that as a way to understand your brain and your patterns better. So the craving is not about just dopamine. It's about escaping emotional pain of shame that came from the last time that you gave in. And then this loop can become emotional, neurological, behavioral, and relational all at once. People think that they are failing when they're actually just stuck in a closed feedback loop. And that's one of the reasons that we need outside help, because you can't recalibrate that just by yourself in most situations. Your nervous system is initiating desire long before your conscious mind has participated in this at all. So by the time that you are wanting something, the wanting has been in motion chemically long before that, which doesn't mean that you're out of control. It meant that your biology fired first, and then psychology interpreted it afterward. Many people think that they are making choices, but they're actually negotiating with impulses that subconsciously started 300 milliseconds before that. And that is the reason why you can't just say no, just use willpower, and why shaming behavior or insight alone doesn't fix the pattern. Cognition is the rider, but dopamine is the horse. So you can learn to steer it, but only after you understand how it moves. TLDR, right? If all of this was too much yammering, here's the takeaways that I'm hoping that you're going to walk away with. So if you're thinking, cool science lesson, now what? The heart of it is you are not broken, you're patterned. And the reward system is not misbehaving, it's following programming instructions that you didn't even realize that you gave it. Dopamine doesn't care about your values or your morality, doesn't care about your goals or long-term dreams. It cares about predictability. What behavior led to relief last time? What feels most familiar? And once it gets an answer, it locks into that behavior, whether it's healthy, toxic, numbing, or destructive. The problem is the loop, but the loop can be changed. However, it can't be changed by trying harder. You change it by changing the conditions that built the loop in the first place. So, no Instagram dopamine hack or 30-day detox bullshit, just real clinical strategies that will help you reshape the system inside. I'm going to give you a couple of behaviors to practice that are not moral dictates. These are mechanical levers of behaviors that over time can change those circuits. 1. Kill cheap dopamine for 1 week. Not all of them, not half of them, just one, something that's sustainable. Choose one that would be easy to remove, like scrolling, or sugar, or porn, taking your phone to the bathroom with you. A hard one for me is constant background noise. If you can hear fountains trickling, or for those who have ever been to my house, I always have something on in the background. The silence is just too much for me. Checking notifications the second that you wake up. Find one that you would be able to give up and teach your brain you don't get to control me automatically. It's not about deprivation, it's about breaking the autopilot loop. The moment that the autopilot breaks and that you become aware of a conscious change that you are making, then the craving loses power. Second, delay a reward by about 10 or 15 minutes. That sounds like it is tiny, but it is a nuclear level intervention. If you want a snack, wait 10 minutes. Want to buy something right now? Wait 10 minutes. Want to scroll? Acknowledge that you want to scroll. Wait 10 minutes. The goal isn't to eliminate the behavior, it's to introduce friction, because friction is what reactivates the prefrontal cortex, the braking system. Many people mistake immediacy for desire, and when you insert delay, you see the craving is just a wave. Waves peak and fade. You don't stop an ocean by force. You surf it until it loses its stream. Third, don't celebrate every single win. Celebrate some of them. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's essential. If you reinforce yourself predictably every time that you achieve something, you burn out the dopamine pathway that drives long-term motivation. If you do something well, like a work project or a workout, a creative burst, sometimes give yourself a reward, sometimes don't. That's the same mechanism of why casinos thrive, except now you're using it for your own benefit. Intermittent reinforcement equals sustainable drive. Celebrate wins, but not on a schedule. Let pleasure become a surprise. Fourth, add one low dopamine behavior every day. People think that the answer is to just remove the high dopamine stuff. And yes, that is part. But you also need to add behaviors that build healthy baseline dopamine without overstimulating the system. So some of those can be 10-minute walk, taking some pride in cleaning the kitchen or a small area, sitting with coffee outside, watching the birds without a screen in front of you, writing a page of anything, or doing something slowly on purpose. These aren't self-care, they're baseline stabilizers. If you want motivation back, you need a baseline, not spikes. Fifth, structure your day around one real win, not 5, not a color-coded playlist of peak performance fantasies, but like one thing that really matters. Your brain hates ambiguity, and when goals are vague, dopamine starts to scatter. So pick one thing that if you accomplish today would actually reduce stress for you tomorrow. Then move everything else out of the way. Dopamine strengthens in clarity. Sixth, practice 1 minute of stillness daily. And that is something that people really resist, especially if you're overstimulated. 1 minute. You don't have to do a 30-minute meditation, which I actually just did my first 30-minute meditation of total silence last Sunday, and that was harder than I expected. So just practice 1 minute of sit, breathe, and notice. This is the bridge back to serotonin, the molecule that makes the present moment feel like it counts. Stillness is not about relaxation, it's about recalibration. And if you can't tolerate stillness, then you are flooded. This is how you can learn the difference. How do you know if it's working? You'll know that it's working when boredom doesn't feel like you are dying, when you don't need 5 forms of stimulation, 2 screens at once, when you can finish a task without bargaining with yourself or thinking next, when you are able to eat without chasing the next bite already, when you can rest and you don't feel guilty, or if you stop confusing chaos with being alive. That's what real change feels like. So, this is not about happiness, it's about agency. You don't need a perfectly balanced dopamine system to be happy. You need a regulated one so that you feel free. Dopamine is not good or bad. It's not the villain. It's not a motivational hack. It's a survival engine that has been running your behavior long before you were even aware. So remember, life doesn't change when you feel motivated. It changes when dopamine stops dragging you on a leash and starts working with you instead of against you. That's what today is about. It's not about addiction, not about policing behavior, but about giving you back your own steering wheel. Dopamine is the impulse, but you set the direction. And when those two can start working together instead of fighting each other, that's when the real version of your life can show up. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Please be kind to yourself and be kind to others. We're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we're all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. Otherwise, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.